gentlemen, welcome to the Joe Emilio Show. I'm your host, Joe Emilio, and with me is no other than Dodgy Idealist. If you are not aware of who the Dodgy Idealist is, please check him out on Twitter or go check out an interview that we had earlier on this year or last year. Can't remember. Very interesting conversation as well. Dodgy, good to have you back. How you been?
Been doing good. Thanks for having me, Joe. How have you been?
I've been great. Thanks for asking. Okay, so
No,
today or
that's
tonight, we are going to be reviewing Helen Zille's book. I wanted to say it again. Stay woke, go broke. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I always flip it. But yeah, stay woke, go broke. We both read it. I am gonna say right off the bat, I thought it was a good book. It was concise and to the point. Bit of a redemption novel as well, if I'm honest. But yeah, it was good nonetheless. So yeah, Dodge, if I can call you that.
oh,
Where do we start?
yes, that's fine. Basically, you know, I think a lot of people on the premise of the title of the book already know basically what it's about. It's about cancel culture within South Africa and how that spilled over from America,
Mm.
um, to our shores basically. It's something that we've always said. It seems like we seem to get all the recycled ideas from America,
Mm.
um, and it's no more true than we can see here in this era of cancel culture. Um, the book, for me, if I'm honest as well, uh, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't gripping. But I guess that also depends on whether or not you've personally experienced something like that. That's how I got the feel from that book. So different people will find different attraction to the book. So, for example, you that also went through a recent cancel sort of venture would feel closely drawn to this book because she's dealing with the topics that you've actually dealt with. You know, you can relate
Mm-hmm.
more relatively to her than say I would, because I haven't been a victim of that yet, and hopefully I will never be. Um, but it's a good book to read if you want to understand or get an introduction to understanding what the toxic woke culture is. Yeah,
Yes,
that's how I see it.
that's actually spot on, and I would tend to agree with you. I think a lot of people, um, who may not understand what cancel culture is or woke or these terms, it's a good introduction to those terms. And she categorizes it in the book, and we'll get into more detail, I'm sure, in a bit. But she categorizes it, or she explains rather, you know, in a list form. Like, these are the kind of people that you must look out for. You know, they will do X, Y, and Z, and then okay, I've engaged with the woke. You know.
Yeah, look, they're very predictable as well. The characters that you deal with in that sphere. Uh, I think precisely because they lack originality. Everything that they get is material that someone else has published either 40 or 60 years ago. So there's no real originality, not even in the new, how do they call it, critical race theory books that's out there. We just basically talked about it before we came online, like white fragility and so on and so forth. It's all basically just recycled ideas, old ideas that's been
How could you
recycled.
say that, Dodgy? Robin DiAngelo is a goddess who identifies as he, she, her, I, it. I don't know.
Them. Let's call it them. Let's make it easier on ourselves. It's just them. You know. No, wait, that might even be too sexist because you need to
N-
have that
now you're
that
assuming. You see, now you're
yeah, yeah,
mansplaining.
yeah. Exactly.
No, but
So
go on.
uh, yeah, so it's very interesting. I liked, the first portion of the book. The first, I think, 50, 70 pages of the book is fairly logically structured. So it's a very easy read to get into, where she explains, like you said, this is the kind of persons that you need to look out for. She obviously begins with a waitress in I think it was Cape Town, somewhere in Cape
Yes.
Town. Can't remember where,
Uh,
but I do remember
I think it
the
was Og's
story.
Cafe. I think.
Yes, and the incidents that happened there. And it's a very, very interesting sort of view. For me, for example, that would tell people that I'm as non-racialist as anyone else can get, I would say, because I don't really see color. For me, that story, when it happened at that time, I remember thinking to myself, holy shit, what the hell's the world coming to? Why are these people assuming that this woman has, for example, land and she's a waitress? The chances of that is next to nothing, you know. Um, and I guess she touched on a very, very important topic there to show that racism, in effect, can be committed by anyone and, well, anyone and at any place, if you would. A very, very interesting introduction, and one that actually got me to rather want to read a little bit more. I don't think there's any fault to it. I did, however, and if she is looking at this review, there is one grammatical error, and that's on page 28. So I had to
Okay.
point that out. I'm sorry, it irked me. It irked me to know, and I even ringed it. Around. Let me see. Yeah,
How
yeah.
dare
Here
you,
it is.
Helen?
Here it is. It's
I
like,
spent money on this book. It should be grammatically correct at every page. That's what
well, it
happens when you
happens.
write a book with Dodgy
Yeah, it
buying it.
happens. Well, yeah, I'll rip it apart. But no, it's further on. It's been really, really good structurally. She wrote it in a way. I'm not a fan of how it was written in that way, but I can understand why she wrote it, considering that she's a politician as well. And I think she was, earlier, before she became a politician, she was also an activist or an activist journalist in some instance. So that certainly came through in the book as well. The way that she thinks, it's like she's having a conversation with you. I remember
Yes.
having to put the book down at some points and just replying to her, either in my head or out loud. And like my spouse would be like, "What the hell are you doing, dude?" It's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, I'm talking to Helen. I'm talking to Helen here. So, but she raises good points, and obviously there are things that are very questioning for me as well. So, for example, we can touch on the chapter where she talks about the caging of the minds, specifically the universities and how woke influenced the university cultures in South Africa. And I think that's very important as well, because those are the bastions of our freedom of speech, right? I mean, imagine not being allowed to have this sort of interview and have these jokes because, she's a woman. Imagine that.
Yeah.
It's sorry, gender equality applies to all. So,
Yeah.
you know, um, what these people try to invoke is a sort of favoritism, and we can get to that as well. When we get to Poplak's review, I think everyone that read my sort of breakdown of the review already knew I wasn't happy with what Poplak wrote.
Mm.
It was very disingenuous. He made character shots in an attempt to nullify her voice. And, in leftist tradition or woke tradition, doing that is just sexist. How do you man saying to her, like I just did a few moments ago with Angela or whatever her name is with white fragility. So yeah. But
Yeah.
I guess if you look like a walrus from Woody Woodpecker, you have to get in cheap shots so that people can like you. So
Sure, shots fired. Yeah, but you know what's ironic about that review, and I haven't read it myself, but what it sounds like you're saying is that the very thing that Helen was talking about in her book, he basically did. Like
yes,
he replied almost, and it's amazing how they don't see the irony in that. These people don't see the irony in that, is that you are doing exactly what I said you were going to do, therefore solidifying the book, because you're
yes. So
acting in
actually,
exactly how the book describes you would. So you're actually
yeah,
giving it credibility.
yeah. And again, it's this idea of them not being able to have any sort of original thought. I know it's part of me saying that, or probably there are a few people that have original thoughts. Mitch, for example, comes to mind, which I talk to a lot on Twitter as well. Might have bot shots here and there and fun and games, but he's fairly grounded when it comes to what I would consider left leaning. But then Poplak is like, no, he's just toxic. He's like, that is, if you want toxic masculinity, that's toxic masculinity right there in a package wrapped with a bow. There's no excuse even for that. But yeah, so he did exactly what she predicted he would do, and it's really easy to understand why, because they're very protective of their sense of morality, if I can call it that. Because to them it would be immoral to not try and get cheap shots or try to bring Helen Zille down in the way that he tried to do that.
But
He tried
also,
to downplay her under. Yeah,
sorry, but also like I think it's also a bit of virtue signaling. Like I'm gonna be the guy that's gonna attack Helen Zille, and then all my little minions are gonna praise me and think that I'm a hero in the woke community, because that's what they do as
yeah,
well. So I
yeah.
think that's also a big part of it. Like, and he probably did. He probably got his ego stroked by a few, Wokians, if we can call them that were like, "Oh, well done, Pablo. You are absolutely magnificent review on Helen's book. You are amazing.
Splendid. Splendid. Absolutely splendid.
Absolutely splendid, my dear."
Oh, there we go with the posh British accents again. One of these days, the British government is going to ban me as well, probably. Um, but to get back to their sort of virtue signaling mentality, I think it goes very much more deeper than that, and it's something that I've been thinking about, which is what I think Helen touched on it in her book as well, when she explains, for example, gives you advice on how to handle the woke. One of the pieces is never apologize, or do not
Mm.
apologize. Rather, not never, but do not apologize. Try not to apologize, because an apology is an admission of guilt. And that's the last thing that you want to give to these people, because their mentality is on what I would call retributive justice. That's like, I equated that to like the 18th century sort of justice system, where people are dragged to the town square and put in shackles and whatnot, and people throw rotten tomatoes and eggs at them and publicly humiliate them for a crime they probably did or did not commit. That's the whole premise of wokeism, basically summed up, is that it's like this moral duty to publicly shame and eventually silence anyone who opposes my view, because if you oppose my view, you are an oppressor to the class that I am trying to liberate, for lack of a better word.
Yep, absolutely. I think you hit the nail around the head there. It's exactly what it is. No matter what it is, the topic is, whether you're for the LGBTQ plus ABC, or if you're with, you're fighting for Black Lives Matter, or you're fighting for handicapped people. The moment let's say I say handicapped people deserve to have free money, or money, every day they deserve to have $50, and someone comes to me and says like, no, they can't have that because it's taxpayers. And then I'm like, you will listen to me because I am right and you're wrong, and I
That,
am the savior of these people. Almost like a Moses complex. Like you've come to the king or the pharaoh, and you're like, let my people go. It's a weird thing that these guys have, and it's even more so if, almost like sharks attacking prey, like the one bites and then they get the sniff of blood, and then all of a sudden there's a whole army of them just attacking that prey, and it can be quite daunting for people. And as you mentioned in the beginning of the show, like I'm someone who has suffered from this kind of attack, and I really don't want anyone to go through it. It's horrible. It's embarrassing. It's, like you said, the modern day version of stone throwing, and I think even more so than that. I think, have you watched Game of Thrones?
yes,
Have you
yes.
watched the episode where they take I forgot her name now, Cersei, and they
Yeah.
walk her through the whole kingdom, and they're like, shame, shame, and she's like butt naked, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and she's walking through all the mud and all the peasants, people throwing crap at her. Um, I would compare it to something like that amount of embarrassment. To see, and some people have, had severe cancellation, if I can put it that way, where, some people have, they've had images, videos just smeared all over social media. It's really, really embarrassing. And, you know, I think Helen, when she says don't apologize, it's not because yes, you're right, and it is right that if you apologize, it's an admission of guilt. But also, when it comes to someone from the woke, from the far left, the social justice warriors, all these guys, they don't actually want you to apologize. They want to embarrass you. They want to make you feel bad. They want to run you through the mud and the muck. They want to make you feel like such a lowlife. And they want to see you cry. If you put out a video where you're crying and saying sorry, even better, because no apology in the world is good enough. And that's what they'll say. Yeah, but now you
No.
need to repent for your sins. You need to do X, Y, and
Exactly.
Z. You need to join our fraternity. You need to bow down to the woke gods and slit your hand and put blood in the cup of wokeism and drink it before we forgive you.
Like some freaking weird, skewed sacrament of the Church of wokeism. Yeah, that
Yes.
that that, that basically sums it up. I'm surprised they haven't gone through the virginal sacrifice yet.
Yes.
So,
But before we continue, let me also say this. I think there are times where you can tell when it is the far left social justice warriors and woke that are attacking you, and when it's someone coming out and saying, you know what, I really felt offended by this. There is a
yes,
difference, and you can tell that difference.
yeah, it,
So if there is a moment where you have offended someone and you want to apologize, by all means. But
yes,
Helen does explain how you can differentiate those people that are genuine and those that just want to use you as a sacrifice to the woke temple.
yes. So, for example, I would be considered someone that would sacrifice the people for the right gods. It's like the right wing gods. This. Sorry, Joe, you're up next. But jokes aside, no, you're absolutely correct. And unfortunately, Helen has gotten the brunt of this whole force. I remember her getting onto or being discussed in not only friend circles, but also on the news for a tweet that she wrote, and she basically also discussed it in a book, the one about colonialism not being only bad. When I read that, I was like, well, yeah, it wasn't only bad. There were good things that came from it, but it was overall bad because we have to take into consideration the effects that colonialism had on the indigenous population. Um, and also the Afrikaner folk in South Africa as well, the Zulu, the Xhosa, the Sotho, and so on and so forth. So, and I think that's another point I want to bring in. Wokeism is a perverted version of what I would call true postmodernism. So the whole purpose of, for example, postmodernism was to question the narrative of the victor rights history, right? So we all know, like I said, the victor rights history. So basically, we have a historical account. So the postmodernist was asking us, are we sure this is a true account? Because obviously there are people that was affected that we did not take into consideration. We're only hearing one portion of it. And that was the true purpose of postmodernism, was trying to get us to a middle ground to find the true way. It's not against truth. That is an extreme form of postmodernism that I don't think many postmodernists would agree with. Um, up last year or the year before that, I would have not said that. But understanding what it now is, I can say no, it's not really that. It's an extreme form of it. Wokeism falls under that. and they take it to the next extreme. So Helen also points out roots in that. So she calls out critical theory, for example, which has no objective truth. She calls out intersectionality, which is toxic in the way that it tries to structure and puts society and the individuals within society into little boxes, and having to what we would call attribute suffering points so that you can have more say or sway within the community because of the previous injustices that were caused against you. So yeah. But I do have criticisms as well. But I don't know if you want to add anything before I get into that.
Oh no. I think yeah, I think when Helen starts talking about that, I mean, it's summed up pretty nicely in the book. Like you said, it's an easy read, which was nice. Like even if you don't know the history, you can still follow along. And she explains the ideologies quite nicely as well. So I have nothing to comment on that one.
Yeah. Okay. So some of the criticisms that I have is she uses the words, for example, um, American cultural imperialism.
Yes,
And I
I know that.
hate that. Oh, I freaking hate that because if anything, she writes it in such a way that wokeism is the result of the wave of American cultural imperialism that came crashing through the internet or something like that, in that line. And I was thinking to
Which
myself,
sounds kind of
no,
wokey,
not
to be honest.
yeah, but and I think to myself, no, that's not true because to me, imperialism is a violent sort of takeover or something, right? So, for example, cultural imperialism, we can look at colonialism. That was a form of cultural imperialism, right? Where the
Mm-hmm.
British or the Spanish or the French would colonize a continent or an island and force their inhabitants to accept language, cultures, and traditions that they normally would not have. It's kind of like what China is currently doing with the Uyghurs right now. That is cultural imperialism at
Yes.
its finest. That is the perfect example of cultural imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
What she's referring to is cultural relevance. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, most of the media that we consume is American.
Yep.
The movies are made by the majority of the movies that we consume are made by American companies. The majority of the I don't know miniseries that we watch, the news, the way that the news is laid out is very very Americanized in such a way, and we can say that it's either good or bad. For me, it's a bit of both. With the good comes the bad, with the bad comes the good. There's a mixed batch. And I'm just hoping that the cultures that meet and clash with American culture, if you would take what's good from the American culture, that pro-independence and pro-individualism, and make that into something of value for their own culture and their own self, because I absolutely adore the Declaration of Independence. I think it was a brilliant stick it up your arse, finger waving at the British government at that time. It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, yes, I absolutely love them. But enough of my American patriotism.
No, no worries. I think one important thing to say is like it's also like it's more of a Western thing, Western
Yeah.
culture. Not specifically. I mean, yeah, maybe it came from the U.S., but it's definitely spread. I mean, like the U.K., for example, is also very similar in terms of Westernization or whatever it is you want to call it. And South Africa does have a lot of British influence as well, even to today with the way some series are made. There's a lot of people that still like watching British television. So I think that's also part of it, and I agree with you. I didn't like what she said there because I felt like, well, I mean, yes, cancel culture was in a way, or did in a way come leaking into South Africa from the Western world, um, and did it come in the way that she said it did? I don't think so. I think the internet more than anything had everything to do with it more than some imperial thing, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
but Yeah, but I do get what she tried to mean with that, and I think that's also why I'm giving it a soft sort of criticism in that regard. It's like, okay, now I understand. I don't agree with your word choice, but I understand what you mean. It's
Yeah.
like when I'm also going to now give a pot shot here, but it's like when Ernst van Zyl says he's a communitarian. No, you're not a communitarian, but I understand what you mean
Yeah.
when you say that, because I understand where your sort of priorities lie with within that group or that within that ideology that you're trying to enshrine. So I guess that's the important thing. Is like understanding really does help soften the blows as well. You know, so that's also probably why I'm not as hard against those that call themselves communitarians. Um, as I otherwise would be against an actual communitarian. Um, or if against Helen Zille, for example, that uses those words because I know what she's trying to convey, the idea that she's trying to convey. I understand that, and I can see that, but it's definitely not something that I would have used. But again, she's trying to convey an idea, and
Yeah.
the idea was brought. I'm just hoping that a lot of other people also sort of understand that, because it might be just her luck or our luck that you know I go out here with an American flag and a musket, and I go force American values now on my neighbor because American imperialism and all that. I'm just hoping that he has oil in his yard. So
Yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying. um, yeah, I guess there is some truth to that in a way. And look, I think in many ways the world is influenced by America. A lot of what America does. Although some would argue now China's quickly now coming up, but yeah, there's any super world or what's it called? Any world power you're going to be influenced by, and yeah, I almost took the conversation somewhere else there. Let's focus on the
yeah,
book.
on the book. Um,
So what other criticisms did you have?
I think she brought her story, her personal story, in too late. I think that needed to be
Interesting.
much earlier. It had to be brought in about, I think, either in the beginning or near the beginning, after the story of the waitress and her ordeal, to try and point out her mistakes as well and her sort of contribution to that. That's my advice, or that's how I felt it, because everything it felt at that point, up until that point, when we got to that point, felt like, oh, that's now an introduction to her story, which it wasn't. Obviously, when you read further and down in the book, because it's 200 pages, what I'm talking about happens about page 90-ish about. So it felt like an introduction to her story, and that would be a very long-winded introduction. So I think to try and curb that, she had to move that a bit further or closer to the front. Um, but that would have also probably, and let's also be honest, angered some of her fans, especially her role with the election with Musi and her role that she played there and what transpired. By the way, I'm not going to talk about that in detail. That's a spoiler. You need to read the book to actually find out what happened there. And if you follow me on Twitter, you already know. Basically, I was so angry. I was angry, but
Wait, what were you angry
I
about?
understand because it felt like that was a betrayal of not only the DA's values, but of the votes that I've placed in them previously
Ah,
at
okay,
that point. And
okay,
for me, it was like, if I knew this earlier, I would probably have given my vote away a lot sooner to a smaller party. I would not have not voted, but I would have still given my vote away to a smaller party. Um,
yeah,
but it's very interesting that she's gone through the very cycles I think that a lot of uh, people also uh, went through in that regard, trying to do what is right at that moment, and thinking that that is this course of action because that might be something that would get more, how can I say, trust in the DA and support in the DA, and would seem like something that the people would want. only to find out that that's not what the majority or some of your constituents would have wanted to begin with, because that basically alienated them. And I also believe that it was because that, and if we're honest, I don't think anybody knew at that point in time what wokeism or what identity politics really was. I
No,
mean, we grasped the straws of it, but we didn't really understand it until that point.
yeah, I think identity politics was starting to fester in South Africa and in politics itself in South Africa. And I think the DA was playing with it a bit. They were playing identity politics at that time, and it backfired heavily on them. A decision that they are still suffering from till today. But yeah, go read that part in the book when she explains what happened to her and the DA is a very interesting and insightful part of the book. Definitely like some juicy content. Like I couldn't put the book down once I got to that chapter. I'm like, now we're talking.
Now we're getting into it. This is what we're waiting for.
Yeah.
The scandal. Finally.
The scandal. But yeah, interesting point that you think it should be in the beginning. I put up here Lars Solis comment, which I tend to agree with. I think she just didn't want it to look like the book was about her. Maybe if she had put it too early, it would have been like, she's trying to,
make it about her. Yeah, I don't know if that would have come across as that, because if you put it too late, it does seem like it all basically builds up to that point.
Yes.
Right?
So
but
I think in the middle is fine. Because
beginning, somewhere in the middle, where it is currently now is also fine. It just at that moment it felt everything built up to that point. Other people might have other views on that, and okay. But personally, I think that should have been a lot closer to the beginning, especially if you don't want the book to be more about you. You can certainly still share your experiences, and then give a lot of the content earlier on. And I think also the advice that she gave again too early in the book. That those portions of don't apologize for certain things, and don't acknowledge them, don't interact with these sort of people, and look out for these sort of individuals. I think that was a bit too early. I think that should have been a bit more later in the book, about where her chapter begins, about her experiences within the DA and what she went through with regards to cancel culture. If she placed it there, I think that would have been good. That would have been a better structure, I would say.
I think it's fine the way where it is, because of what happens next. Because she explains, the what to do, but then there's like 8 points or 10 points. I think, does she call them the 10 Commandments or something? I don't know. I can't remember. But 10 points that she gives to people of not just what you should do, but what you can look out for, and solving this almost like culture battle that we're going through now. Like what you need to look out for, how you can prevent it, what the best course of action should be. Yeah. And I think that's because, in my opinion, that works out quite well as well.
Okay. Well, one thing that I can't criticize her on is her advice. I do think that it is solid advice that she does give. I do think that she hits the nails on the head at every single turn. Again, especially because she and you as well, you went through that, so you have the experience of dealing with that. And I think people like myself that haven't gone through that actually have to read that and take it in, because it might happen that eventually I might say something which, I'm surprised I haven't gone through that yet. But I might say something to the wrong person, and the cancel mob would be on my case, right? So yeah, it's a very good pointers to have in retrospect of everything that's happened to her and to others that's been in that very same position. So on that portion, I can't criticize her. getting back at Poplak, I think that if he concentrated on the actual content and actual sort of objective of the book, his review would have been much more balanced. And I think more people on the woke side would have also been more inclined to actually read the book to try and do what he actually did in the beginning, if that makes sense. So, leave it for the small fries to give the pot shots or throw the mud. But yeah, you skipping the line and doing that for them basically excludes them from reading her opinions and her views. And that's another criticism that I want to bring up with these so-called journalists, is like, they're so used to this flinging mud. I don't know whether they're pigs or whether they're people. So they're indistinguishable at this point in time.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And look, again, I haven't read that review, but from just the few things you've said now, look, this is what journalists do, man. I think he's trying to make it, or writes his review in a way where people don't read it. Like people, the book's a lot of crap. I'm not going to read it. I think that's the response he wants, and in that regard, again, the woke cult win, because now less
Yes.
people are reading that book, and being their minds are not open to, or their eyes are not open to, oh wow, this is wokeism and it's bad. So yeah, I think look, it doesn't surprise me that he was a little bit more leaning towards pud shots and criticism and stuff like that. But there are other good reviews out there, and I've seen them,
Mm.
that are well balanced, fair,
Yes.
and praise the book. I think, yeah, I think Popluck is just, I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
he's written any other books, but maybe he's just jealous, or maybe he just hates Helen Zille. Maybe he just has
Well,
a thing against her.
well, like I said, if I looked like him, I also probably would have resorted to cheap shots. So maybe you should maybe consider hiding in the closet more often than coming
Wow.
out of it, and maybe then the world will be a better place. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be that mean. I shouldn't be, because one of these days I might eat my words. But up until that point, it's fine.
No, no, no.
But no, there are actually a few good reviews out there, and to those reviewers, I actually want to give praise, because I felt like, yes, they actually got the message of the book, which was what wokeism is, how to deal with it, and how to move on from it. And I think that's the important premise of the book.
Yeah.
So if that's something that I would say readers are interested in, then the book is definitely worth your read. If it's not something that you're interested in, or if it's just something that doesn't pique your interest, then the book is not going to be for you. It's really
No,
not going to be.
no, Dodgy. You must tell everybody to read the damn book. Everybody. I don't care what you're into. You must read it. It must be part of school curriculum. It must be your Bible next. It must be next to the Bible on your bed. Okay. This will save your life, people. We live in dangerous times of technology and social media. You need this book. Buy it. And Helen, if you're watching, you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. By the way, I don't know if Joe is sponsored by Helen Zille, but
Helen, you have my number. You know what to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, but no, looking back, if I have to be honest, I do like Helen a lot more than other politicians. A lot more. And I have more favoritism towards her than I would have, say, towards even what's his name from the ZACP.
Can't play.
Yes, even more than I have towards him. So there's a lot of goodwill from my side to her, especially considering all the crap that she's been eating up with regards to what we would call the woke. Um, I wonder if I can't share. I think what I need to do is I need to share a few videos, one or two videos on retributive justice, and also on a person that actually summed up and summarized wokeism fairly good as well. I can share that to you, and maybe we can put that into the description of the video afterwards, so that the
Sure.
people that are interested can go and view that and stuff. It's long-winded videos, but it's very important, I think, to understand why they think the way that they do, because to them, it's all about victims and the protection of victims and the moral implications of that as well. So that's why they would stand up, for example, against a Catholic person if he refuses or she refuses to bake a cake for a gay man, but would quickly turn against, I don't know, an extremist when they try to, I don't know, kill the Catholic person as well. So it's very confusing in some ways, but also kind of makes sense in that confusion. If it's like, I don't know how to explain that. It just does. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't think any of it makes sense, to be honest. But yeah, the you touched on something very important there, and it is that they want to protect that whole victim mentality. I'm a victim. You must listen to me because my truth. I always use that word or that sentence. My truth is more important than your truth because my lived experience that I went through is above yours because I went through it, and you must listen to me. And if I say I am the victim, you have no right to say otherwise. And if you do, then they use terms like gaslighting, victim blaming. The list can go on, and all the trigger words or keywords that they try and use to kind of shut you down. And then there's always like a lot of word salad as well. I call it word salad, where they try and explain themselves and they try and use big words to make themselves sound like they're really educated. But when you really read
I take
carefully,
offense to that.
well, well, check your privilege
I
at the
use
door.
big words. I'm a victim here, guys. I'm a victim here because Joe's just like, I don't know. He's
No, but surely you've
throwing
seen
the
those.
word jargon at me right now.
Dude, it happens all the time on Twitter. Like these guys, when you got them in a corner almost, they either start insulting you. So that's one of the ways you know. Like, instead of having like a nice discussion, like, hey, I don't know, maybe BE is bad. Then they'll be like, no, it's awesome, you selfish prick. Like that's how they'll come at you. So then they start insulting you. You can notice them, but the thing I wanted to say now, and I forgot. I lost my train of thought. Can you believe
Oh, age. No, age is a terrible thing.
it?
This
Yeah,
is why I
yeah.
drink, guys. This is why I drink, because age is very, very, very. Ooh, it's
No, what were we?
alcohol is made to take the sharp edge of life out. So
Yeah, okay. What was the thing we were talking about now?
I don't
Before.
know. I've got
Oh,
it's how they can insult you, and yeah,
age,
the word
age.
salad. Yeah, ageism. It's right here now, right? Ageism.
You don't even remember. Um, no, it was something about insulting. I know that was the point I was I
Yeah,
was I was getting to. Is that
it's
yeah?
yeah, that's how you know, because they also insult. They don't engage honestly with you,
Yes.
and I think that's also an important thing that we try to distinguish. There's a lot of accounts now, and again that I've either muted or I just ignore, because honestly, I don't have time anymore for the attempted bad actorship disguised as honest debate, because I'm not there to convince you. You either believe in what you want to believe, or you will give me an ear, and I will listen to you as well. I might not always agree with you, but in time, I tend to do change my mind on certain things, and I have changed my mind on a lot of positions actually over the past 2 or 3 years. Um, I'm much more moderate than I used to be. I would admit that. I used to be a hardline believer in saying that the state should not exist, period. Now I'm like, no, the state is kind of a natural sort of phenomenon of society, and society is kind of evolutionary. So I can't really live without that. So as you grow older, you tend to listen to people more, and you tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. You entertain their idea. It doesn't mean that you accept their idea. And I think that's something that both left-leaning and right-leaning individuals need to do more often, is try and listen to one another, because there are valid points on both sides. Honestly, if I'm being very honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I, a lot of people don't like it when I tell people to block accounts and stuff. But here's the thing: I only block for three reasons. One, you came onto my timeline and you insulted me right from the get go. You fat shamed me, or you just called me a bad word without even engaging in a question or anything. You're just like, oh, you this or whatever. Then I'm gonna block you because I know you're trolling. Two, a friend of mine told me to block an account because they've encountered that account before and they know that they're a trolling account. Or I've seen you insult a fellow friend of mine. I'm gonna block you for those three reasons. And people get really pissed off when I say you need to block people, whether it be on Facebook or any social media account. Because, the left will scream and say, oh, but then you're creating an echo chamber. You're going to look at, he's in his echo chamber, blah, blah, blah. Another trigger word that they want to try and make you feel bad about. And here's the thing. I have a lot of people on my Twitter account that I don't agree with. And I'm not shy to admit this. Buddy Wells is one of them. He might be on my show soon. And yeah, we've had disagreements on Twitter, but I don't block him because he's not mean. He actually speaks to me like a human being. And I respect him for that. I may not agree with his ideologies and what he says, but I can, like you said now, I will listen and I'll be like, okay, cool. I hear what you're saying. I don't agree with it, but hey, we're not mean to each other, and that's cool.
Yeah, it's ironic that they say that you're creating an echo chamber because they're trying to cancel all the voices that are contrary to. Do you see the hypocrisy here? It's like the pot calling the kettle black and being the pot and kettle at the same time. So,
but here's the thing: if you do it back to them, so like if you start trolling their accounts, right, or anything of that sort, then they block you. Like it's okay for them to block, but it's not okay for you to block. Again, it goes back to that whole, rules for me but not for you, or rules for you but not for me. And you see this a lot, and that's why I tell people, for your own sanity, people, just block.
Yeah.
Just block. Block.
Yeah, it's what you have to remember is it's your social and psychological well-being.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get to decide who influences that and who doesn't. One thing that I've told my family as well, both married and my own, well, it will sound very terrible, but my sister, for example, is I have people in my life because I want them there, not because I have to have them there. And because I say that, and because I think that, I assume that others also do and think that very same way. So I value them much more, because in a moment, it means that if they don't want me there anymore, they can just decide to walk out of my life. So I think if more people started to think like that and started to adopt that sort of view, the world will be a lot more sound and better place, both psychologically and socially. Because then that means that there's that mutual form of respect as well.
Yes.
One thing that I will say as well is, and I think this points then to the book as well, and with regards to the bad reviews that Helen's gotten about this, it's precisely what we've talking about. It's the unwillingness to allow the dissenting voices or the differing voices to be heard, for fear of being found wanting, if I can call it that. Imagine being vested in anti-racism only to find out that you yourself are racist, believing that all white people are bad, and eventually coming to the realization, oh crap, I'm actually the bad person because I've generalized and I've been prejudiced to the majority of white people in my life, and I did not respect their individual autonomy and individual thought as much as I would have thought I would, because I was blinded by my own, what I would call hubris in that regard. I think that's the fear that the left also has to stare down into in the hallway. It's like the grunge walking up to them.
Not if they accept that they are racist.
No,
You need to read
no,
White Fragility.
because yeah. I need to get past the prologue. Yeah, I need to get past the prologue.
Nah, look, it's all BS. Like I haven't even finished that book. I was telling you off air. Like I'm on page 25, but there's so much already that happens up until that point, and it hurts your brain. Like I think I don't know. I don't know how people can subscribe to this book and just believe what is being written. I think one of the reasons, because like the left always like to say, yeah, but it's the number one selling book, like it was number one, because it's crap. People were buying it because they couldn't believe what was in it, and they had to read it for themselves. And once they were done, they probably used it for firewood. That's probably
No, don't. Please don't. You'll get cancer from that book. Just throw it away. Just recycle it. Just
use it for
don't use
toilet
it for
paper.
plywood or something. Yes. No, it's not even meant to be applied externally. It's just
And you
trash done.
you only
Recycle.
went through the prologue and you're saying this.
It's and like I said, I haven't even finished the prologue, and I'm saying this. It's like it's terrible. It's really terrible.
Yeah.
There's this new guy as well. Off topic quickly. I think it's Kendi or something. I've seen him being trending online as well. I don't know exactly who or what he is, but he struggles, or it's a person that struggles to define racism as it is. It's like it's kind of easy. It's the prejudice or the false notion of one race being superior to another on the basis of skin color. That's kind of straightforward. It's very narcissistic in its core. So, but they
No,
can't figure that out.
no.
But
Look,
yeah,
I think Sichle, Big Daddy Liberty, said it best. It's like what one of these things that the woke people do, and the reason why I brought up White Fragility is because I do think that a lot of wokeism came from that book as well. Um, and one of the things that the left do very well is they keep on expanding definitions. They'll expand a definition, and then eventually it gets to the point where they twist it on itself. So certain words, for example, racism. Like you just said, you gave a perfect definition of racism, but now they've expanded it to the point where no, racism is not just prejudice when against someone because of the color of their skin. It's also when you have power. Oh no, it's also
yes,
systemic racism. Oh no, it's also this. It's also that. So now it becomes so expanded and so confusing that it's flipped on its head, and now everything is racist.
yes, and I think that's also something that Helen points out in her book. Is like, they keep on moving the goalpost.
Yes.
It's what we would call they keep on moving the end post. Um, so anyone that's done projects or large scale projects, we all know that if a goalpost keeps moving, that project is doomed to fail. Wokeism, if I'm honest, is doomed to fail. It's the lesser of two cultures that we're seeing. It's currently being very vocal. It's kind of like this, right? I don't know if you know history or know much about the Christian history, for example, but there was this heresy called Arianism in the East, when Christianity basically sort of just got to its roots in the 3rd century, and it basically got to a point. This heresy got to a point where it was politically more powerful than Christianity. But in the end, Christianity won out against this heresy. And I believe that is the very same thing that we're witnessing here. My advice to people is stick to your principles. Don't just give ground unless there's a good reason to give ground. And also, there is no neutrality. There is no such thing as neutrality in these sort of things. You have your principles, they have their principles. We can listen to each other. We can have a civil discussion about these things. But don't just back off on your principles, because that's the moment that the tide is turning against you. And that's the moment that you become the victim instead of I don't know, being liberated from this sort of onslaught that we see, not only online, but also in our lives.
Yeah, and you bring up a very good point about sticking to your principles because, as a matter of fact, wokeism and the far left, and even in the book White Fragility, they don't like individualism. And when you're an individual, you have your own thoughts, you have your own opinions, your own principles, and an individual can exist in a group. An individual can exist in a culture, it can exist in a tribe, it can exist in a country, it can exist wherever. But they don't like that. They say that that in itself is racist if you're an individualist. And I think it is the deconstruction, basically, of the nuclear family to a certain degree, I think is also affected by this. But you touched on a very important part where it's principles. I mean, they don't want they want you to have principles that are like theirs, but their principles are so all over the place you don't know what's right or wrong. And that's the thing, it's not about what's right or wrong, because every victim is different, but yet every victim speaks out. And so you're like, okay, cool, so what do I listen to and who do I listen to? And then, like you said, the goalpost just keeps on shifting further and further and further away, to the point where we're just like, okay, I can't say anything, I can't do anything, I can't use pronouns anymore the way I used to, I can't say jokes anymore the way I used to, I can't mention color, I can't mention culture, I can't mention, I don't know, if I say that the weather is dark today, it's probably racist. So what in the hell am I allowed to say anymore? And that's what they're doing. They're doing this to a point where it's almost like a bit of a control over society. And luckily, there are people fighting back.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at the people that are fighting back, it's Helen Zille, it's in South Africa, it's you, it's Ronaldo Goos, it's Roman Kabanek, all the people that I know the wokies won't like me mentioning, but and Dumo Denga, for example, and so on and so forth, especially with his libertarian sort of podcasts and stuff that he has. But there are also good people on the left that I would suggest people, give a follow and maybe look into. I know.
Traitor.
Like I said, a year ago I would not have said this, bro. A year ago I would not have said this, right? I sometimes look in the mirror, or sometimes when I think about something, I'm like, yes, that's very leftist.
No.
I don't like what I'm thinking now,
Hey.
but there are good people that I think we need to listen to.
Yeah, and I'm not. I've always thought of myself as a centrist. Apparently, that doesn't exist. I don't care. In a political spectrum, I would say centrist. I
Yeah.
do have a lot of right wing ideologies, but I also have a lot of left wing stuff. Seriously, I do not care. I do not care what people do, as long as it doesn't harm me. You can be whatever you want to be. You want to be a man, identify as a woman, that's fine by me. You want to love the same sex, that's fine by me. It really doesn't affect me. I'll be your friend. We'll hang out. We'll go to bars. I really, really, really don't care. I mean, I would like to get to know you. Maybe you're a nice person, whatever the case may be. We'll be friends. It's cool. You do you, I do me. But just don't enforce your beliefs and ideologies onto me. If I respect your way of life, you need to respect my way of life.
Exactly.
And if we do that, everybody's happy. And I don't care.
Yes. Yeah. See, and I think that's also why I didn't like Bob Black's sort of review in that regard, because it was not respectful in that manner. It did not afford her the benefit of the doubt in that regard. So getting back to her and her book again, I think it's been fairly eye-opening, if I'm honest, in certain ways. In other ways, it just confirmed suspicions, but in other ways, it was fairly eye-opening, or it gave me insight into phenomena that I've struggled to sort of pinpoint. And I think that's what's important here, is that knowledge truly does give you power. But not the power in this case of exerting force on another individual, but power in the sense of liberating yourself and understanding the sort of enemies that you would be fighting against. And if, for me, I would say, yes, go read the book. It's good. It's really written good. But again, page 28, please fix that. Please fix that grammatical error. If you want to know where it is, I'll point out the paragraph and the word. I've got it.
Okay, yeah, let's have some
So,
fun. Let's have some fun with this. Okay, here's the book. You say
all right,
page 28.
right. Page 28.
Okay, hold on. Page 28. Helen, if you watch this, I hope you're taking notes. It's too late now. She's printed the damn thing.
Yeah, it's too late, but look, I hope you bring out a second edition. I do
Okay,
hope
so
so.
28.
Second last paragraph in the
Okay.
last sentence. That last sentence.
Markets operating outside state control, Smith argued, would be the hidden hand capable of improved life for everyone. Is that the one?
That's it. That's the only word. That's it. That's it.
It's supposed to be capable of improving life for everyone.
Yes.
I also
So
noticed
that's
that.
the only. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really it's the only one that I've noticed out of the 200 pages and out of how many words printed. So
Damn it,
I've been a
Helen!
bit
You just
failed.
lost all credibility. You were a journalist. How dare you? No.
Again, it happens, but yeah, no, I picked it up and I thought, you know what, because of the review and stuff, it would be fun to point that out and maybe just make a bit of fun of it. But no, it happens. It happens to the best of us. I mean, if you look at some of the things I've written, oh, it's atrocious compared to Helen's book. So, so again, it's a fairly good book. Depending on, again, if you've gone through this personally or whether or not this is an interest of you, it's definitely worth a read. If not, it's not going to be that interesting for you, but it's going to be a good thing to know how they operate because they are very predictable. They do have patterns in which they operate. And I think Helen actually hit the nail on the head when she points this out. You know, they do this or they will say this or something to that extent. The formula is very, very the same. It's like baking a cake. You know, there's only so many ways that you can bake a cake. You know, it's cake. So
yeah,
basically that.
it's I mean, when I did a video that's still on my YouTube channel about woke people, and I ranted about them for 15 minutes, and I said in the video, because I put on everything that I knew would trigger them. I had like a Trump hat, I had like Gareth Cliff in the background, I had all of, I mean, some of the stuff is still there. You can see Ramon's mask and Germ's mug and all this stuff, and I knew it was gonna trigger them. Like I knew it was gonna bring them like worms to the surface, you know. And I said it in the video. You guys are probably gonna snip this. You're gonna screenshot certain parts, and you're gonna try and make me look crazy. And guess what?
They actually did.
They did it.
Bastards.
One guy actually did a review on the video, like a full-on Twitter feed review.
I remember reading that, and I was like, "Bruh, I'm blocking your ass because because that's exactly what he said you're gonna do, and you did it anyway. So I'm blocking you. I'm not even giving you a chance to explain." And blocked. I was like, "No, fuck this. Oh no."
It was probably the best thing I ever did because, like I said, it brought all the Twitter wokies out. You know, they were fuming, like, "Oh, how dare this guy say these things about us? He doesn't even, you know, and you know, trying to make me out to be like a failed comedian and all this stuff. Basically trying to push on the cancel culture type of thing. But it was all the same 5 people who don't have the cojones to say it to my face. And it was easy because then I was just like, okay, block.
Because then you could actually see the maggots come out of the carcass. Actually,
exactly,
because that's what they are. They're maggots in a dying carcass, and well, the carcass
absolutely
is really dead. So.
And what makes it even more entertaining is until today they still talk about me. Some of them will probably even watch this show. They hate me so much, but they will watch this show. And I mean, I've said this to my wife many times. Like, how, like, Dodgy, come on. Like, we can't get through white fragility because it just hurts our brains and we hate that woman so much. But these people who claim to hate me so much, that I'm the bane of their existence, are able to sit through an hour almost every night and watch my content.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
it's
grateful for the
interesting.
view because I get money out of it, but
So I mean, well, I mean, free market, right? Yes, free market capitalism or whatever you want to call it. It's like, yes, this is what I aspire to. This is what I like about the free market. You get paid even by your haters. It's like,
yeah,
yeah. But
that's great.
you bring that point up as well. It's interesting for me, like we've pointed out, it's fine if they block you, but it's not fine if you block them because they want you to hear their opinions. They don't afford the same credibility, or they don't afford the same sort of platform to you. And this is something that I feel the wokes um, will have a hand into their own demise, because eventually people are just going to get fed up with it, and they are going to go, you know what, this is irrelevant. And that's personally, that's what I want from the wokeism, the extreme wokeism, what we're witnessing now. That's what I want to see. I want to see them dwindling into irrelevance, because that's where they belong. That's where that idea belongs. Also, what you bring up is very interesting. I don't know what to make of that, because I don't hate D'Angelo or any. I don't know them. Um, Dislike.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even say that. It's just ugh, ugh. It's like a disgust. It's like someone's telling me that I need to eat blue cheese or something like that. But something worse. It's like, I've never tasted it, but it sounds absolutely horrible. So it's something like that. It's that sort of reaction
fair enough.
that I have to them. But yeah, that book is absolutely horrible, horrible, horrible. I mean,
Yeah,
I've read horrible stuff, but it's horrible. It's horrible. Don't waste your time.
yeah. So like, yeah, that's what they tend to do. But anyway, it's over an hour.
Mm,
So we're gonna cut it here. Maybe just in closing, I'll give my final remarks on the book, and you can give yours. Although I think you
mm.
sort of have, but you can
I
say it
just
again.
did, yeah,
Yeah, you just did.
yeah.
So I'll just give my final. My final. Oh, sorry, I just saw a comment here that I want to bring up. First Kingfish 91, asking who is the wokest politician in South Africa in your opinion. Would be tough to beat the USA. I think Nancy Pelosi is the wokest in. Oh no wait, OC might be
Mm-mm, mm-mm, yeah,
OC.
AOC,
Yeah.
all that. What's that Muslim? What's her name?
Oh
I haven't heard about her for in a very long time though.
man, it's on the tip of my tongue. Ah,
You know exactly who I'm
I
talking
know. Hold
about,
on, I'm gonna.
right?
Hold one second.
But they're part of that whole squad. They're part of that entire squad. It's like they call themselves a squad or something like that.
Ilan Omar. That's the one.
That's the one. That's the one. It's
um,
between her and AOC. But though,
yes,
okay,
yes.
Joe Biden is very strong in the lead as well, but I blame that on his dementia.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay, so that's USA, but South Africa, who's the wokest? That's Cyril
politician. Does it
Ramaphosa.
have to be a? Does it have? No, no. He's just
No.
a. He's just a serial liar.
Yes.
Um, yes.
Um,
Toughest. This is a tough question. Wokest. There is no. No, wait. None that I can think of.
there must be any the ANC
No.
policymaker.
Pumzilla
Oh,
van Dam.
Pumzilla.
No,
Yes.
Pumzilla van Dam.
Yes. Yes. I second that. I second that. Absolutely.
that that is probably the wokest politician, or well, she used to be a politician that I have ever seen in my entire life.
Dude,
Second,
she's now joined ASD and she's with the woke cult of Twitter. Like she's so yeah, she's there. She's there.
okay, she's part of that group. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, then my decision is justified. I don't know.
Yes.
But it took me a while to remember that she actually exists. But yeah, that's the wokest one that's out there. I
Yeah.
think if she didn't hit the people at the VNF waterfront, or that waterfront wherever it's in Cape Town, she would have not been as infamous or famous as she is now.
Yeah, what a way though to become infamous. But anyway, Okay, so my final thoughts is just read it, even if cancel culture hasn't happened to you, read it. It's easy read. It's 200 pages. It's not long words or anything like that. It's actually written very nicely. She actually wrote this book so that they can include it in curriculums. That wasn't a joke. That was actually serious. So that people in university can also study this phenomenon and stuff like that. So, or at least have a book. I don't know, something about uni students reading it in social science or something like that. So, get the book. Easy read, 200 pages. If you're a fast reader, it should take you about 2 hours. If you're like me, it'll take you 2 months. So, yeah.
2 months.
Yeah.
2 months, he says, and me like trying to get the book in 2 months. Like, yeah. Because apparently, like I've been at bookstores like all over in Pretoria and or close to me at least, and none of them had the book.
Wow. That's
You know where I got the book?
What?
Right? At the airport in Cape Town. That's where I got this book.
Interesting.
That on a while I was waiting for my flight back home to Pretoria. I was
Why
like, oh,
didn't
there's
you
an
try?
exclusive books.
Yeah, so I went to exclusive books the day they said it was going to be released. I went on the day because I thought, bookshops, they get their big boxes and then they've unpacked it the day before to be prepared for the big book launch the next day. Boy, was I wrong. There was no advertising. There was nothing. I still went in. I was like, do you have Stay Woke, Go Broke? And they're like, oh, no, that's only coming in next week. Okay.
Oh
And
damn.
then
Okay.
and then I went on Take-A-Lot and I ordered it and it came within 2 days.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't. I don't trust Take-A-Lot very much. I've had some bad experiences with him.
Fair enough.
It's like, yeah, but yeah, my sister uses them. Maybe I should have asked my sister to buy me the book and then courier it up to me. It would have been faster.
Anyway, you have the book, you've read
Yeah,
it. I say to people, yeah, go read it if you want.
it's
If you don't understand woke and you don't understand this, I don't want to say culture war that we're in necessarily, because I mean the book doesn't necessarily talk about that, but wokeism is an aspect of that. Then read it so that you're equipped. Especially if you're someone that frequents social media a lot, read it, and yeah, it just gives you good insight. And also, like we said, there's a nice little scandal story in here. I mean, even if you just want to read that part, it's good.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth it. For me, it was worth it. For me, that made it worth it. And even if I did get a bit angry and so on and so forth, but it was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And it gave me a bit of insight. Oh gosh, why is the dog's barking?
No
But
worries.
anyway, it's definitely worth a read, I would say, if you're into politics and stuff like that,
Yes.
or if you just want to understand what the woke is. It's a very good introduction to that. Obviously, there's other reading material that I would suggest as well, but that's from the enemy's side. But it's good to know as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
Nah.
not white fragility. Screw it.
Yeah. Did you see your new book?
The subtle racism of white women or something like that. Something like that. I'm like, yeah, it's like
Just keeps on
I
churning
was
them out,
wondering
man.
when this. Yeah, I was wondering when that shit's gonna hit the fan and like just go on the conveyor belt and be pushed through. It's like
Yeah.
quantity over quality, I guess. So
Yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this stream, please let me know, and I will do more with Dodgy Idealist or other guests as well. But yeah, thank you, Dodgy, for joining me on the show. I must have you back again. We can have a nice conversation, like a chilled,
yeah,
relaxed conversation about South Africa. And yeah, but thank you for giving up your time and willing to do this with me. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
yeah. Thank you very much. I also enjoyed it, and thank you again for having me on and actually inviting me and asking me to do this review, because otherwise I would not have bought the book, if I'm honest. I'm actually glad that I actually bought the book, because
Okay, good.
it was a really fun book to read. Really fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
Helen, if you've got questions, I'll give permission to Joe to for proofreading. Just proofreading. I've got you covered. I've got you covered.
All right, so Clay Wilson is a good friend of mine. Says Daniel Andrew is woke. He's Luciferian. I didn't know that.
I don't even know
So
who he
apparently
is. So
that's a politician. Okay, I'm
oh,
out of here. This is the comment I actually wanted to read. First of all, Clay, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I saw that you were in the chats all the time, so thank you so much for watching. He says, I'm out of here. Hey, Dodgy Idealist, stay dodgy, brah. So that's a cool.
always, bro, always.
And First Kingfish 91 says, thanks for the awesome stream, or Steam. South Africa Red Pill Pharmacy right here. I like it. I like it. Subscribe.
I love it. It's brilliant. Yeah. Do subscribe to his channel because it's actually got good content on here. If I'm down, I actually watch Joey Media's content. It's really good.
Thanks, buddy. All right, cool. Well, that's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow I will be back on the show with a Comedians Roast the Headlines. That's where a group of comedians roast headlines. We look for the craziest, wackiest headlines, and we make fun of them. We make fun of the article. It's a lot of fun. You guys are encouraged to also comment and give your roast if you want to during the show. If it's good, we'll pop it up on the screen as well, and we'll just have a good, fun evening together. It's a lot of laughs. I really would like you guys to join in on the show. That's tomorrow, 9 p.m. Comedians Roast the Headlines. All the details on my YouTube channel. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, if I don't see you then, I will see you next week. Or if I don't see you then stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Dodgy, don't go anywhere.